Thank you everyone for joining to this event. Welcome, and we'll go over today on how to transform your agency payments. Please keep your lines muted at all times so we can have a better presentation. We have 60 minutes to go over this content. The Q&A will be available at all times so you can ask your questions. The lines are muted for a very experienced, as I say, and we are recording this session, so we'll be sharing afterwards a link to the presentation and some key takeaways from this webinar. We'll also send you a link to a feedback survey that we would like you to answer so we can present better content. And we'll also ask you if you are interested in keeping in touch with the team of Saber Direct Pay and Brex. So it will be great if you could answer that so we can be sure that you are interested in keeping in touch and getting more information regarding this product. Before we begin, I want to introduce you to Warren Kentridge and Federico Mausione. They are both from Saber Direct Pay, and Megan Parfit from Brex will be also presenting today. So a huge welcome to all of them. Warren, I see you are here already, and
Hi.
whenever you're ready, hello, the
Perfect.
floor is yours.
Wonderful. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Is it visible?
Yep.
Perfect. I see some more joiners. Should we give it another minute, or are we okay to just move on?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think that will be fine.
Wonderful. Well, very nice to meet everybody. Thank you all so much for making the time for us today. I am head of Americas for Saber Direct Pay, and I've been with Saber since August 2021. I come from an issuer GDS background, and I am hoping to give you a bit of insight into payments, as well as the value proposition that is Saber Direct Pay. So I'm not sure exactly in the room, how many people are familiar with payments, but I would like to give a bit of an introduction to virtual payments themselves. And with that in mind, I'll start there, and then we'll go into the value proposition that's Saber Direct Pay. And then following that, Brex will talk a little bit specifically about their solution and how they are partnering with us as well. And this is just really for those that don't really know how virtual payments work, just in case everyone on the call needs a bit of an insight into this. Essentially, virtual cards were released and created to combat fraud. So how it works is it's a virtual payment product that's processed very similarly to a normal physical credit card, and it's defined by the payment that you wish to make. So you'll still have a unique 16-digit number, but you'll have set parameters around that number to the payment that you want to make. So for example, the value of the payment, the merchant that you wish to pay, a date range that you wish to use that card. So there's for authorizations of that product. Just to give you kind of a few examples, if anything that should happen around those parameters, that card will decline. And there's obviously a whole bunch of benefits surrounding that we will dive into in a little more detail. Ultimately, it'll be one card every time you pay a supplier with essentially the virtual card number. So we've outlined some benefits about virtual cards, which is more than just protecting against fraudulent activity. And we've kind of matrix cross-referenced those into the different types of payment methods that we think that you are potentially using today. At least one of the three I'm confident you'll be using today. So those three would be bank transfer. In America, they refer to ACH. Rest of the world is EFT, electronic fund transfer. And we got the airline settlement plan, which is ARC again in America, and in the rest of the world is BSP. And then you got your normal plastic cards, which is your physical credit cards. So if you think about what that does for you, right? When it comes to virtual payments, obviously we got the protection against fraud, which I've outlined there. You don't get that anywhere else. So that's number one. But also, if anything had to happen to a virtual card payment, there's a chargeback rights by the schemes, which is MasterCard, Visa card, for example. Those chargebacks will allow you to pull back the money back in case of anything that should have to happen. For example, airline defaults, hotel bankrupts. This was very prominent during COVID. Millions and millions of dollars was charged back if you used virtual cards. If you didn't use a virtual card, more than likely you lost your money during the COVID times where bankruptcy was high, default was high, and this sort of thing. One of the most interesting things for people really is the rebates, because money talks, right? So there is a rebate associated to every virtual card payment that is determined by your volumes and the banking thresholds, and we'll dive into a little bit more how banks work. The only other type of reward for a payment is actually a physical credit card. And that would be because they give you points, usually. Some very rare occasion you can get cash back, but mostly it's just points that is specific to a platform, and you're ultimately at the mercy of that platform. So they might tell you, you get so many points, and we will, you can use that points for an air ticket, or you could buy a TV or something like that with those points, whatever's available in that platform. But with a rebate on virtual cards, it's a cash back to your account. So it goes towards your P&L, revenue for your business, and you do with it what you want. You buy loads of TVs. So it is going to be a new revenue stream if you're not using virtual cards today, which is one of the key reasons people kind of look at this, because of the potential of earnings. And if you're already using it and you already got a rebate, then what we do is we try to optimize and get you a better rebate, because we have a lot of banks that we work with. And with Brex, given that they're the newest kind of issuer for us in the North Americas, they are eager to bring the right rates to meet the customers that we want to work with within Sabre. Then, of course, you've got automations. There's very little automation available outside of this space. You would get a sense of automation with GDS, BSP, or ARC, because you're essentially just having to pay a bill at the end of a month, or end of a cycle, should I say. But ultimately, virtual cards are currently all integrated into Sabre, our solution with all our banks, including Brex. And there's an API available, right? So if you have a Sabre API at play, or you'd like to integrate into our API, that is available, so you can automate the process of generating virtual cards. Another key factor is the date in which you get back when you pay. So reconciliation is powerful, and we get third-level data back on virtual cards. And by the way, these benefits are not specific to Sabre. I'm giving you the broad spectrum of the benefits of virtual cards in this industry. So reconciliation is powerful in that if you're getting the third-level data, you're getting an itemized in an Excel spreadsheet of everything related to that payment. So merchant level, dates, amounts, currencies, things like that. A vast amount of information. And if you're doing that in Sabre, you got the Sabre information there as well. So it becomes very easy to reconcile. And then lastly, cross-border payments. If you're paying abroad, then there are, with virtual cards, probably the cheapest way to do that. There is ways of reducing that or waiving it completely, depending on how you're set up and the bank that you work with. There's a lot we can talk about in that space, which ultimately, usually, Forex can go up to 2%. So it becomes very expensive when you pay abroad. Virtual cards, it can become very cheap. Sorry, my screen's not changing. There we go. So today I want to tell you sort of what Sabre is doing in this space. We have acquired Confirma Pay in August of 2022. The Confirma Pay platform, I don't know, obviously, who on the call is using Confirma or knows about Confirma, so just to give you a bit of insight, Confirma Pay is a platform of banks that each, up to 80 banks, have individual APIs connected to the Confirma Pay platform. So by you using Confirma within Sabre, you could have access to all of those banks if you wanted to. That's Confirma Pay. Sabre acquired Confirma Pay. We have been working with Confirma Pay for many, many years. We were essentially selling or using a third party in that case. Now we're owning Confirma, and it's our solution to which we sell. And with that in mind, we obviously done some changes, which we'll talk about. November 22, MasterCard bought shares into Confirma post the acquisition. They are now one of our leading partners. MasterCard is the leader of virtual cards. They were the first to launch the travel program for virtual cards. They have a lot of data analytics, merchant level relationships, and they can help us get acceptance where cards are being pushed back in different markets around the world. So they become a very strong brand and partner for Sabre. Early this year, Confirma rebranded and Sabre Payments rebranded. Sabre Virtual Payments was always been the name that we've used. Confirma Pay just basically moved to Confirma. That's the new change. And they're going to ultimately focus on corporations or consumer, the traveler as the cardholder, supporting the TMC to pass those cards to merchants. So you're a travel management company, your corporate opens an account with one of these banks in Confirma, and you can access that for them, pass that card detail to the merchant on their behalf, and then there's ways of earning from that. That is the Confirma model. Sabre Virtual Payments is rebranded to Sabre Direct Pay because we help you directly pay your suppliers, B2B. So we focus on the travel agency as cardholder for travel agency to pay their suppliers directly. So you're a merchant of record in this instance. And that's what we'll be talking about today. So with obviously back, the Confirma technology is what we're still using, and we're now in control of the enhancement, development, and decision-making of what happens with Confirma. But with Confirma in mind, we have covering the whole globe, 75, it's going on 80 banks now. We work with a set amount of banks within that 80 mix or 75 plus mix. Those banks are specifically identified to cover the world. So in different markets, we have different requirements to which we will bring on a bank, we will contract with that bank, and we'll make them what we call premium to bring the right solution to that particular market for our set of customers. So in this case, we would be talking about Brex, given that they will be specific to the market that you're in and can solve the solutions that you need in your market. Across the platform, obviously, there's 45 plus currencies. Brex themselves have a number of currencies. You would probably need US dollars, I imagine. If there's any Latin American, there's obviously currencies for Latin America as well. And rest of the world, of course. Some brands that you might recognize that we're working with today, just to kind of give that peace of mind, I suppose. To give you kind of a holistic picture, if you think about the fact that Sabre, Confirma, we have almost 80 banks now, that would give you all the different products, facilities, schemes across all those banks. So you could cover everything that you essentially would need. We suspect, depending on where you are and what the amount of bookings you have, for example, you probably need one or two, but it's good for you to know, especially if you're dealing with corporates, and those corporates might have accounts that you're going to be able to get access to all the schemes, Visa, MasterCard, UATP, for example. If you need credit, you can get credit. You could use prepaid. Prepaid gives you more rebate. Credit will be a way to optimize credit, so you could have maybe more than one credit facility if you're not getting enough credit, or if you just need, you get what you need, then potentially prepaid to up your rebate levels. And then the product range is really more specific to rest of world outside of North America, where there's different levels of product types to give the right type of product to the airline or the hotel, where they might not want a certain level of cost. There's various levels of costs to these cards, and you can give the merchant the right card that they are happy with. Again, in North America, we don't really see this as a problem. It's generally a standard corporate purchasing card, and all the merchants are accepting that without a problem. And then again, everything can be automated, not only from the issuing of virtual cards, but also the reconciliation, and you can have that fed into a back office system through SFTP. This is to give you a bit of a picture around the globe and where we're focusing on. So you can see the green is where we're well presented. I'll say the green and the blue in back because of Europe and Asia Pacific and North America. South America, we are onboarding two different banks, Jazz Tech and Comafi, as a premium issuer to give local issuing capability across Latin America. With Brex, they have local capability in Mexico and in Brazil. So outside of those countries we're trying to expand into. As an example, Comafi is specific to Argentina and so on. I think where we will still hold off and maybe in the future look into is Africa. Africa is very difficult to dive into with payments. So we really focus on expanding the Latin American market to have local issuing in all the different markets around the town. But again, North America, we're sound, various issuers there. Brex is prominent in North America. That would be a focus for us for Brex. Europe, there's different issuers to choose from, and as well as Asia Pacific. This is talking premium, so the set 12 or 13 banks to cover the globe outside of those 80 overall banks. So essentially, you could have one of all of them, but we would prefer to focus on the ones that we think matter to you. So the three ways in which you can generate virtual cards with us, one would be the web pay portal, logging in, creating a card, like a manual way of working. It has benefits. There's batch file uploads that you can load an Excel spreadsheet, creating multiple payments at once. You can have first and second level approval process to determine how much each consultant can pay up to, and have that at second level, so $1,000 per person, for example, and that can then go to an approval. So there's benefits about manual, but we obviously prefer things are automated and using this within the GDS. So our GDS integration with Confirm has been available for many, many years, works really well. One extra entry in your booking process, and you can add the form of payment as a virtual card. It is that simple. There are some demonstrations that one could do. That will be something on a second call if anyone's interested to see how that actually looks and how easy it is. But that's for us, the goal is obviously to bring virtual cards into our Sabre bookings. And then everything's automated, can be automated. Like I said, there's an API that is agnostic, and then there's also the Sabre API. If you're using that already, then you can leverage that. Or if you'd like to directly integrate into Confirma, you can do that as well. So this is a typical setup that we see for some of the, I would say this is more OTA or kind of maybe the larger TMCs, consolidators maybe as well, where they have lots of different banks that they're working with for different purposes, different markets, for example, reconciling each of those separately. And what we're trying to do is obviously bring that together. So one platform, one login, any bank you need, one report, and one conversation. So you deal with us and we set up everything for you. That's the goal for us, assuming you need more than one, right? Ultimately, if one's covering everything and you're using that in the Sabre GDS, that is a winner. Something that's interesting that we've developed, it's called the orchestration engine. So this will help you decide if you need certain products to be paid to certain merchants. For example, maybe you don't want to pay a particular airline because you've got a special arrangement there. You don't want consultants sending cards to them, and you need to block that from happening. So you can simply block the virtual card from paying that supplier code. Simple. There's ways, if you're using more than one issuer, for example, that you can decide from which issuer you want a card to be used from, and you could have a failover from one to the other. So if for some reason the issuer goes down, you can fail over to another issuer. I think that this is obviously quite prominent when using more than one issuer. Where it becomes interesting for one issuer is to decide by scheme, MasterCard or Visa, and by merchant, what products you want to pay to which suppliers. You can make that configuration and be able to pay that without a concern of consultants doing or misusing the product. The platform that we're talking about has a tool called Snap. That's the reconciliation tool. There's a little short video playing here. Ultimately, we've said that this is a consolidated platform of all the banks, but what we haven't said is it does come with customized fields. It is extremely easy to navigate it, self-explanatory, but those custom fields you can add as mandatory, and that'll be for information that potentially you're not seeing or you need to see as customized for your own business. And then, when you're generating the cards, you would have that input, and it'll be made available in your report at the end of the day. So ultimately, you'll capture everything with this report, and I think that's the point. So these are the sort of the five, I would say, to recap, areas in which payments can help you. The green is probably just standardized for virtual cards in general. Obviously automation, integrations, ease of use will save you that time. Reducing fraud with the parameters and the chargeback rights. And then when we come in as Sabre is obviously to help them grow the revenues, consolidate the report, and also give you a choice of multiple banking options in one place. And with that said, I think I'm handing over to Megan. Is that right, Megan? Are you on the call? I hope you're on the call.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me okay? Perfect.
Yes, we can.
Well, wonderful to join the Sabre team here today, and thank you for the fantastic tee up there, Warren. Brex is really thrilled at being one of the newest premier issuers with the Sabre Direct Pay team, and we've had a lot of very early success. Looks like we may be sharing a different screen here. Eddie, do you want to add in the deck back? There we go. If you want to go to the next slide too, that'd be fantastic. Perfect. So just to give you a little bit of background on who Brex is as a whole, why we're a little bit different than the traditional banks and other global issuers out there, and then we'll dive into how we specifically support OTAs and TMCs with Sabre Direct Pay. But for those of you that are not familiar with Brex, we are MasterCard's largest issuer today. And we really started as a smart corporate card. We started specifically with servicing startup companies in Silicon Valley that had very high venture backed funding and were unable to get a traditional credit card, either because they were pre-revenue or they had owners or founders that were not a U.S. citizen. So early on, we really tried to take more of a customer first approach to how we issued cards to companies and underwrite them. Since we had, built on that smart corporate credit card to overlay more spend management technology. So think of, things like Concur that now is built in and embedded into our card. We also have a travel arm to it, where we have dynamic lodge cards or BTA or ghost cards, however you may refer to them, that can sit centrally billed within your agencies to manage that corporate pass-through spend. We also have a small kind of online booking tool engine for companies that don't have managed travel, but typically that grows into a larger TMC or agency from there. We also have a deposits account. So think of this like your traditional operating accounts. This is really helpful for companies that have a large global presence, especially in this Sabre Direct Pay virtual card space, where they want one centralized deposit account with high FDIC insurance, high yield, to really consolidate all of that deposit volume and then fund their virtual cards from. We can also fund from an external bank account as well. But just, putting that out there if anybody is, hearing of their customers that they need support with their bill pay or banking relationships. And then as you can see kind of on the side here, just a point of reference of some of the larger customers that we service today. Why we see this also helping acceptance from a virtual cards perspective is a lot of times, we hear that from OTAs, they are getting blocked from the merchant because uh, it looks like an OTA card. Whereas with Brex, we have, billions of dollars going through in non-travel spend as well. So really diversified portfolio that helps maximize for overall acceptance. Now, moving to the next slide, kind of focus on why specifically Sabre and customers are choosing us as their consolidated issuer, premium issuer. And really that stems from our unique underwriting models. So we're able to take one large global credit limit across like the umbrella of entities or regions that a company may operate in, and be able to provide one very large unsecured limit for all of that spend. Now, we also allow for different currencies. So think of like a multi-currency wallet within the Brex umbrella. Why this is unique and different than an American Express or another issuer is typically legacy companies require you to set up different contracts for different currencies or different entities. which creates a bit of a reconciliation nightmare and a very lengthy underwriting and implementation process. Essentially, it creates many areas of places where things can break or integrations can have hurdles or roadblocks. So having one single platform that can service all of your currencies and provide one seamless limit and statement really is going to improve the speed to deployment as well as the overall experience. And I would say from an onboarding perspective, you're up and running in a matter of weeks versus months. We work very, very closely with Sabre and Confirma to really build in a very seamless onboarding experience. Next slide. So this kind of gives a little bit more of a visual to that overarching global limit and essentially the structure in which we would set up an account with Brex as one of or your main issuer. So in the example below, I kind of give a few pathways to how we can support this. Again, we take a very custom approach to it. So this isn't limited to what's seen here on the screen. We do have as Warren mentioned, a very strong US presence. That's where I would say our rebates also have the strongest kind of ROI. And in that scenario, it would be, a USD point of sale card, and then it settles and pays in USD. And then additionally, we can support up to 48 different countries. So if you have 48 different entities in 48 different currencies, we can, support all of that under one umbrella. And the two different ways that we do that is what we would call like for like. So when you have Canadian spend and want to settle from your Canadian bank account, it would be that like for like in Canadian dollar to Canadian dollar settlement. But there are scenarios in which companies need to maximize for acceptance and need a local currency card in a particular region, in this example, Brazil, but they don't have an entity set up there. They don't have a bank account there. That may be for a number of reasons. Maybe it's tax purposes or they just haven't gotten around to setting it up. So we can provide a local currency card with non-local billing. So in this example, it is a Brazil card at a Real card at point of sale, and then they settle in USD. And so we can really provide coverage for all of those scenarios and help optimize for foreign transaction fees or tax fees like IOF, for example, in Brazil. Now, depending on the total amount of spend, those fees are something that we can absolutely negotiate as part of the commercial offering. So in addition to a credit limit to extend your working capital and give you some float, as we know, cost of debt is very expensive these days. So we can provide some extra time there, as well as high rebates and optimizing for, again, those foreign transaction fees. These are all things that we, like I said, take a very custom approach to it. So my team will work directly with you to really understand what your main priorities are, what you're looking to solve for, and where you need coverage, and provide a commercial offer to support and back that. But we also have companies that start with just one region or one entity that they need support in. And then with Sabre Direct Pays technology, together we can really orchestrate a logic behind when the right issuer should be pulled in for a specific merchant or region. Of course, we're built to scale, so we want to earn more of the business and partner with you as business evolves. But happy to meet you where you are today to support whatever needs you may have. Next slide. Perfect. So here is just a quick glance at the coverage that we support in those local currencies. So where you see kind of the first column is local card, and that's where the like for like would be able to occur as far as being able to support you in euros or the British pound or Mexican pesos, whatever it may be. We are growing this list rapidly. So if you don't see a country on here that you need coverage in, maybe in the APAC region, please reach out and let me know, and I will be sure to update you as soon as testing becomes live there and we can start the process. Next slide. Again, this is kind of just speaking to how Brex fits into that flow within Sabre and Confirma, and our ability to work with them to really streamline and consolidate from a reconciliation purpose, as well as providing that logic and that dynamic issuing engine to really optimize for acceptance and for rebates. Again, happy to work with you, one-on-one on how we would facilitate the Brex card in either combination with your other issuers or as a standalone. Next slide. This is just a quick glance at kind of the typical life cycle of a conversation from introduction to deployment. As you can see here, again, a very efficient process as far as really understanding your needs, which a lot of times Sabre has a very good understanding of that, and so we're able to truly hit the ground running and jump pretty immediately into like what types of rebates we can offer, and then from there we would go through the KYC and underwriting process. That typically takes about a week to process everything globally. We actually have a dedicated team within Brex that specializes in these global consolidated underwriting reviews. So very different experience than what you may have seen or be experiencing today with your banks. So not only does the initial application and limit typically take 3 to 5 business days, but in addition to that, once you are a Brex customer and you do choose to scale or grow your business, we're actually able to provide limit increases typically within the same day. So something that is very efficient and unique in the industry, and just the level of hypercare and support that we provide to not only support the success of your platform, but the growth and scale of your global limit as well. And then again, we'll work jointly with the Sabre and Confirma teams to very seamlessly deploy the account. In addition to the resources that you get with Sabre, you'll also have a dedicated team with Brex. So along with myself and my team, you'll get a dedicated customer success manager, as well as an implementation team that will help with all the integrations, APIs, and orchestration of the platform as well. So very hyper focused on customer service and support that we could provide. We also have 24/7 customer support that follows the sun. So you're never going to have an after hours call-in center. So this is really important for those global customers that have people all over the world during different time zones, that you'll have full end-to-end support from the Brex team. I believe that is it for the Brex side. Again, if there's any questions, please feel free to surface to Warren or myself. And really excited to have more conversations with the folks here on the phone, and look forward to hopefully growing a partnership with you as well.
Thank you, Megan. So I think, in terms of what would be the next sort of best steps, and that will be one other thing that I wanted to touch on. Obviously, if you're interested, we would love to have a conversation. That conversation would probably result in some kind of commercial offer for you as a business. If you would agree to those sort of terms, then you would simply have to open up an account with Brex. Brex will do their own due diligence process, as Megan mentioned. And then if there's any integrations that needs to be done, we can do it all in parallel. But ultimately, we would be the ones to set this all up for you and make it available for you in Sabre. And I think something that often I get asked is, how do we do this? Like, so how do we transfer money and make these payments? It's quite a common question, I would say, in the North Americas, where I think virtual cards are quite prominent, say for Europe, for example. So they, obviously in a lot of different cases, you're receiving cash as an example, cash on invoice. You might have a credit card at play within your office as your own business account. Wherever you are able to take money that comes to your business to make the payment, we're not necessarily suggesting that you need to acquire cards, process credit cards internally from your customers, which can be done. But it's more about where you have that funding, that monetary value in your business today that you could potentially switch to a virtual card. So if you're settling ARC or BSP in cash, as another example, as I said, your physical card, that's always an easy switch because Brex are offering credit if it's approved. And then any cash type payment that's coming into your business is a very easy switch to a virtual card number as well. These are the sort of standard scenarios that I could think of. But very eager to hear back and see if there's any questions and if we need to dive into any more detail on the subject.